Hello and welcome to Coach's Decision, a sports talk show from the Bay Area and beyond. My name is Thomas Todd. I'm in the lovely KSCO studios tonight by myself, but pumped in his voice from Albany, California. It's Daniel Zarchi. How you doing, buddy? I can never get Danny on the show. Danny, are you there?
Hey, buddy.
Hey, I gotcha. Danny's my old college buddy. We love to talk about sports. That was the genesis of our friendship. What was something else we had in common in college, Danny?
We both like going to Woodstocks every morning and watching football for 12 hours a day.
We did like watching. We also like dating editors at school newspapers. I think that was the other thing we had in common.
That really brought us together.
It did. It almost tore us apart. Love will tear us apart. Okay, on today's show, we're going to talk about the upcoming Super Bowl just a bit. We'll do a full Super Bowl preview next week, but a little bit to recap the championship round. We'll talk about Warriors Spurs and the absolutely dominant Golden State Warriors. I'm actually, side point, watching the Warriors game in the background right now. Blake Griffin hit a guy. We got a lot of stuff to talk about today, Danny. I'm really excited, but I want to start with some conference championship action. I called it the Denver Broncos beating the New England Patriots, and I felt like it was a very unpopular opinion at the time. What did you see in that?
Called it.
You called it too, but you're not me, so I'm not going to give you any credit.
I actually called both games. Thank you very much.
You did. I knew the Panthers were going to win, but the only way I could win our pick pool in the coach's decision pick pool was to pick Arizona and pray. So, I feel a little vindicated. But what did you see in that game beforehand, and what did you see in the game that was in Denver's favor?
Defense, and also defense.
Yeah, but it wasn't just defense. It was the fact that New England could move the ball, but the fact that they couldn't run. Von Miller and DeMarcus Ware could just line up on the outside and speed rush around the tackles. Normally, if a team can run the ball, run a draw play, or run a counter, or really have a fullback dive, anything, the guys on the outside have to respect their inside gaps. But really, two really talented, probably future Hall of Fame pass rushers going around the edges with no worry that they were going to lose their inside gap protection.
Yeah, I mean, there was a lack of a run game. I think Denver also, it was either a Denver record or a New England record, but Tom Brady got hit and hurried and knocked down more than any other time in history.
He got hit 23 times. That's probably more than Manning had been hit all season. I'm not kidding.
More completed passes that Manning has made all season.
I think Brady now has tattoos on his ankle that read "DeMarcus was here, Vaughn was here." Like it was like a permanent thing.
He's got another tattoo in his rib cage that looks like Von Miller's face mask.
Guys should actually get like a stamps in their face mask, like their names or their signature logo to imprint on quarterbacks' stomachs. Well, it's the only place you can hit a guy now. So, but
it's like the guy. It's like when Ace Ventura got punched by the guy with the ring.
Yes. Exactly. We could solve crimes as to who killed Tom Brady. The lasting image from that game for me is going to be Brady just twisting in the wind because they weren't, slamming him in the chest to the turf on every play, but it always seemed like, especially on those last couple drives, there was always someone just nibbling at his ankle, and he was just trying to stay alive and get a throw off. That'll be the lasting image of that game for me.
Yeah. No, I mean, I don't think anybody can really blame Tom Brady for what happened or give you credit or give credit to Peyton Manning for what happened. I mean, unless you're Phil Simms, but that game was won by the Broncos defense, and everything else kind of came out as a result of that. I mean, Manning had a lot of short fields, and they had a lot of which they used to get really good kicking, have a really good kicking game.
Well, here's the two things that were very strange.
Yeah, it wasn't an offensive battle. It was a world-class defense dominating, and that was enough.
The two things that were very strange were if you were going to look for scapegoats for this game, you'd think, okay, maybe Manning throws a few picks, loses the game for Denver. You can say the offensive line of New England falls apart, and they kind of did. But the real scapegoats, I think, Gostkowski missing that extra point, which you would never expect because he's been a sure thing just as much as Adam Vinatieri was before him in New England.
And Bill much as Blair Walsh.
Yeah, I mean, not quite as much as Blair Walsh because that was A, an easier kick, and B, worth 3 points. And, his team didn't have a chance to recover. The Patriots could have picked up Gostkowski, and they nearly did pick him up there at the end. And actually, I have to blame Bill Belichick because I'm watching this game, and there's time winding down, 6 minutes left in the fourth quarter. They have all 3 timeouts. They're inside the Denver 20, and they don't kick a field goal. Why do you not go down 5 with 6 minutes left? Manning hasn't been moving the ball all second half. And, hindsight's 20/20. He doesn't move the ball the next time they get it. They bring it back down inside the 20 again, over 2 minutes left with 3 timeouts. So that's 4 timeouts, the 2-minute warning. Don't kick a field goal again. Manning can't move the ball again. So really, they had 3 shots and put up 7 points. They could have put up 13 points in that same amount of time. So I'm really confused as to why Belichick stuck to his 4th and go for it guns.
I mean, I think this is hindsight. Really, kind of.
You can read my Twitter
really
feed. You can read my Twitter feed with my friend Andrew saying, "Kick the darn field goal." Both times, kick the darn field goal. I wanted it both times.
I know. I mean, I think there are a lot of factors. I mean, on the one hand, are you slightly less confident in Gostkowski now?
No, he'd already hit a field goal after that.
I know. I just mean, well, what's interesting is one analysis I heard was, what if Amendola or Edelman, rather, hadn't made it so close on the 4th and 1? If it had still been 4th and 5.
Yeah, because Amendola kind of shook a couple defenders and got an extra 4 or 5 yards.
Kicked and everything would have presumably worked out. I mean, I don't know. I hate to take all these situations and say things would have been totally different. I mean, if they'd kicked, and then that means that they're kicking off, and then that means that the Broncos' game plan might be totally different.
From the 20? I mean, they were going to be getting the ball on the 20 because Gostkowski could put it through the end zone. It's Denver. So I don't want to hear any of those arguments.
I just mean that it's easy to say, take every failed 4th down, give them 3 points, and there you go. Here's what the new score is.
No, I absolutely not. But you have to play the game going forward from those spots. You'd obviously like to be down 5 with a chance to get the ball back rather than be down 8 with a chance to get the ball back. It just didn't compute in my head. Belichick went for it at the wrong time, and he was proven wrong, and he's the reason that they're out right now. The fact that he came in with no running game, came in with a patchwork offensive line, and then when he did have a chance to make the right decision, he didn't do it. So I'm going to throw it on Belichick along with some random luck. The Patriots suffered some bad luck this season, and all credit to Denver, but they're about to get their pants taken down, right, in the Super Bowl.
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm definitely going to be betting on Carolina. I mean, it depends what the spread is, of course, but if you're just picking who's going to win the game, I think Carolina is by far the better team. Then again, every time anybody has kind of disrespected or underestimated the Denver defense, it comes back to bite you. So, here's the question: is the Denver defense really that good? Another fun question is, what if Manning and Cam switch places? What if Cam could have these receivers, or what if these receivers could have Cam? I mean, can you imagine what a juggernaut of a team that would be?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And pair it with the defense. Carolina has a really, really good defense. It's not quite as good as the Broncos, but obviously, put an elite quarterback on these Denver Broncos, and they're 15-1 in the regular season. They're the ones coming in with all the hype. But the thing about Cam Newton is he is a one-man running game. He's not going to have the same faults that the Patriots had. There are no flaws. He opens up Jonathan Stewart running lanes just by having that threat of taking the ball outside or chucking it 50 yards down the field. The Broncos just can't manipulate defenses like Carolina can, and that's the worry. Miller and Ware aren't going to be able to put their hand in the turf and just charge upfield on every play. So the spread opened at 4.5, and I immediately, if I had many, many thousands of green men from history times in my wallet, would have thrown lots of money down on the Panthers. And it turns out that's what happened because the spread's already at 6. For a spread to move a whole 1.5 without an injury, without anything major changing, that means Panthers got hammered by the public and by sharps in Vegas.
Yeah, I mean, I think I would definitely take the Panthers in that. I'd probably still take them at 6.
Yeah, but I mean, I'm comfortable with it.
disrespect the Broncos at your own peril.
Yeah, the only thing that's uncomfortable about 6 compared to 4.5 is, the garbage time cover. Maybe the Broncos defense is effective. Cam only gets in the end zone 3 times instead of 6, because right now he's getting in the end zone 4 or 5 times a game. They were the number 1 scoring offense, and it wasn't particularly difficult for them. They didn't just do it against the New Orleans Saints twice and teams like that. They were doing it against everybody, and they just put a 49 spot on the Arizona Cardinals, who were the Super Bowl favorite in Vegas going into the playoffs.
Yeah, I would have disagreed with that to begin with. But anyway, this is a really, really good game. It's going to be really interesting because the last several years, you obviously had Seattle and their excellent defense. They won it, and then you had New England, which was obviously a kind of
a pedigree. They just have a pedigree. Yeah, they just have a pedigree. That's what they have. They can win any game because they have one of the best quarterbacks of all time, one of the best coaches of all time. You throw a couple other guys in there, and anything can happen with the Patriots. That's why they're so great. You don't list off all of their Pro Bowlers or all these guys that are going to make the Hall of Fame because you can't do that. It's not how their roster's built. But they just get it done. So they don't have to come in with any particular swagger or hype. They just come in as the Patriots.
Yeah, and then you look over at the Panthers, and we all know that Ted Ginn Jr. is going to make the Hall of Fame. That's just not even really fair.
If it was for dropping footballs, then yeah, he's a first-team All-Pro Hall of Fame candidate.
And then Kyle Williams.
Yeah, him and Kyle Williams ball. Now that's got to hurt you, buddy. Sorry about that. Now that your window has shut, I feel really, really bad that you were one baseball general manager's son existing away from a possible Super Bowl run with Alex Smith.
It's okay. Now all we need is Chip Kelly to kind of bring Kaepernick back to life with his, high-octane, sprint-everywhere offense, which, if you want a quarterback to do that, somebody who's got the physical talent like Kaepernick, even if he doesn't necessarily have all of the quarterback instincts, might be the guy to do it.
I had this scheduled for later in the show, but let's talk about it now. I saw the 49ers hired Jim O'Neill as their defensive coordinator coming over from Cleveland. He spent 2 years on the Browns. Both seasons, he was the defensive coordinator. They were in the bottom 10 for defense. Does that inspire any hope in you whatsoever?
Who did Cleveland have? They had Joe Hayden, who was possibly not that good.
Justin Gilbert, who they took over Sammy Watkins.
Yeah, good choice there. It's...
Well, he's not coming into a world of...
you have to give Balky a little credit. Not that much, but more than none. And if you take a guy who had nobody and you give him, Navarro Bowman...
And Navarro Bowman. Yeah,
Eric
no, I'll wait.
Good.
Antoine Bethea maybe comes back and has a rejuvenated season after his injury, but he's going from a Cleveland defense that didn't.
Not awful.
Cleveland didn't have a great defense, but he's coming into an equally untalented roster right now.
I don't know. If there's one thing that the Niners did last year, it was they played pretty good defense at home. There is one thing that they did. That is the one thing that they did.
They held Aaron Rodgers to 17 points.
Yeah,
one time.
You can't really take opening day to mean anything, especially given that Minnesota looked pretty good the rest of the season. But they looked good in that game. They had a couple other games where their defense really, really stood strong, and it was all around a really bad year. So this is all silver lining. But the defense was a strong point. And it really showed that Navarro Bowman is back. And having him back and then having slightly below average pieces the rest of the way is still a pretty good space to have, and I'm sure it's better than whatever O'Neill had.
True. Okay, I can get on board with that. Let's bring it back to Manning for a little bit because he had a post-game interaction with Bill Belichick that hints at his retirement. The quote was to Belichick, "Hey, listen, this may be my last rodeo, so it sure has been a pleasure." Do you read into that he's probably going to retire? And do you think winning or losing in the Super Bowl makes it more likely that he retires?
I think that definitely means that he's planning on retiring. And would anybody want him back next year?
The Broncos turned to him when they needed him. Brock Osweiler is injured, but even before that, they wanted Manning back. They just wanted him healthy. And if he can play 12 games next year, including playoffs, because he clearly can't play 16 and then go into the playoffs and try to win a game, but he can go, 10, 11 games and then try to make a playoff push. Denver doesn't have that much going for it.
Do that.
Yeah, but Denver doesn't have two. Yeah, they can. They have Osweiler. He's above the cut line of quarterbacks like Brian Hoyer or Johnny Manziel or these guys who will be available for your team. Ryan Fitzpatrick. Osweiler's at that level, so you kind of go with give Manning the LeBron James time off middle of the season and hope that it pays off in the playoffs.
I know. I just mean that you don't really see football teams do that, platoon their quarterbacks.
They just did.
They can at least, but they pretended there was an injury, but even if they wanted to do that, they at least had the injury to point to.
Manning's so old, his chicken parm sandwich is injured.
But also, Manning is not playing well. So even, you do this unorthodox strategy, and your reward is Brock Osweiler and really poor Peyton Manning. I know he's your favorite player of all time, but come on, he's not playing well.
Yeah, I agree, and I don't want to see him flail in the wind and throw these ducks. I don't want to see it, but
would you rather have, if you're John Elway, would you rather have a combination of Brock Osweiler and Peyton Manning at 14% of himself?
14%? That's a pretty low percent. He might be that when he's dead.
Or would you rather have, RG3?
I'd rather have Osweiler Manning than RG3.
Insert random free agent quarterback here, right?
Mm-hmm. Well, that's what I'm trying to do. Do you want Brian Hoyer? Do you want Kellen Clemens? These are the guys that are available. Do you want to try to talk Kyle Orton out of retirement? Josh McCown, Josh Freeman, for Christ's sake. These guys are available. But Manning, at least...
I'd rather have Josh McCown throwing to Demarius Thomas, Emmanuel Sanders, and Owen Daniels than Peyton Manning.
Okay, well, we'll get Demarius on the phone and see what he thinks.
1 year older. Peyton Manning, 1 year older, 1 year, closer to the grave. And
closer to the grave? It's just filled with Brett Favre jerseys, that graveyard.
I mean, Josh McCown or Brian Hoyer.
Luke McCown.
Brian Hoyer did a perfectly fine job of throwing to DeAndre Hopkins.
And getting a couple of concussions on the way.
Yeah. If you put him in a system where all he has to do is not screw up, not lose the game for the defense, but he's got, really great passers who excel at running across the middle and doing screen passes. So it's not just chuck it down the field kind of guys. Then, Brian Hoyer is a much better guy for that than Peyton Manning.
Okay. Well, you get John Elway on the horn and you see what he thinks. I want to talk about Peyton Manning's legacy. Peyton Manning's legacy before we move on, because John Elway is important to that. The world watched John Elway lose 4 Super Bowls early in his career. But then he came back and won 2 straight to finish his career, and he's, considered one of the 3 or 4 best quarterbacks to ever suit up. Manning has a chance to go 2-2 in the Super Bowl, and does that completely redeem his narrative? Because he lost a lot of games. He's about 500 in his career in the playoffs. You don't think a second Super Bowl redeems any of that?
Oh, no. What I mean is I don't care.
Oh, you don't
I
care?
Just don't care.
Oh.
Well, I'm
gonna kick you off then. You're off the show.
No, I'm coming from the point of view. I mean, I think football and basketball kind of skews people to think this way. But from a baseball perspective, I don't think one game can really do anything. One game does not define your legacy. And so he's had an amazing career. He's done some amazing things. And I think that's a much more telling biography of him than how a couple Super Bowls went.
You can say that it doesn't influence...
The way Seattle was playing, anybody would have gotten blown out by them in that game. That wasn't Peyton's fault. I mean, it wasn't squarely on Peyton to the point where you look at him and say, oh, this guy sucks.
Right. Well, you can say it doesn't
So-
influence you, but look at Kurt Warner. He's one San Antonio Holmes catch away from being a surefire Hall of Famer. Now he's being kept out
But that's
because
stupid.
I know it's stupid, but it's what happens, so we have to accept it, and we have to play with the narratives they give us and with what other people think, because it's not just about what we think, because things like being in the Hall of Fame are important. Things like being considered the greatest quarterback of all time is important, at least to me.
Well, you're wrong.
Okay. All right. I'll be wrong about that. And we don't have to talk about football anymore because there's plenty of stuff to talk about.
You don't want to talk about the Pro Bowl?
Oh, actually, I do. I have that here. Why does no one want to play?
Because people get hurt playing football, and the Pro Bowl is stupid and meaningless.
Okay, let's cancel it. I'm on board.
I would take a free trip to Hawaii, and then I'd sit on the sideline and drink a beer and, do that kind of thing.
I think it should be an old-timers game. Those guys' heads are already messed up. Let them play.
So you're saying Peyton Manning should be a Pro Bowler?
Oh, okay. He's got a game to prepare for, Danny. He can't waste his time this Sunday in Hawaii. Yeah, no one wants to be in the Pro Bowl. What are they? I think I read the stat. They have 133 Pro Bowlers and alternates, the most ever by about 14. Nobody wanted to go.
I mean, it's already a problem in baseball where people would rather have 3 days off than be an all-star. But in football, you can actually get hurt playing that game.
Yeah,
So,
people would rather not play than cut
they
a
don't wanna
week out
play,
of their
like, flag
vacation.
football.
They have like a 7, 8, 9, 10, 12-week vacation right now, and they don't want to lose even a day of that to play in some stupid game where you can't even blitz.
Yeah. I mean, the score is going to be 70-60. Some team that's wearing bright, random colors is going to win, and Chris Berman is just going to sit there saying back, back, back. I mean, this is a functional equivalent of a home run derby.
As in Eli Manning hurt his back. It's a sad game when Eli Manning's your number 2 overall draft pick for the game. Russell Wilson goes number 1. You're like, okay, Russell Wilson can lead a football team. All right, and with the second overall pick in the Pro Bowl draft, Jerry Rice selects Eli Manning. You're like, ooh.
Well, Jerry Rice never much, it's not like he ever worked with any good
No,
quarterback.
he's never seen a good quarterback in his life. All right, I can't talk about the Pro Bowl. I try. We should just kill it. Just kill the Pro Bowl. Should be a skills contest, maybe like see who runs the fastest or throws the farthest. That's all I would care about.
I'm just surprised that Derek Jeter and Kobe Bryant weren't elected.
Yeah, get them one before they retire. Basketball. Speaking of Kobe Bryant, who's a supernova burning out, but we're watching Steph Curry continue to rise. We saw him score 37 points in 28 minutes against the San Antonio Spurs. One of the most, I think, overhyped teams and underhyped teams at the same time right now. They played terribly, the Spurs did. Kawhi Leonard only took 6 shots. LaMarcus Aldridge only scored 5 points. Very strange game. Warriors won by 30. Does the stretch of Bulls, Cavs, Pacers, Spurs, is that their most impressive stretch of the season? I think it is.
Yeah, I mean, it probably is. I can't imagine what would be better than that.
If they beat the Monstars, the Globetrotters, the 86 Celtics, like who else are they supposed to beat before they get respect as the best basketball team on the planet?
Well, winning in San Antonio would help, given that they've historically had just awful luck in San Antonio. But come on, they have to get some credit for that game. I mean, the caveat is, of course, that Tim Duncan didn't play.
Who cares?
And which is funny because, Tim Duncan probably would have affected that game a little bit. But what's funny is that, all the stuff on the internet of people saying like, oh, Popovich, this is all part of the plan. He's, he doesn't want to show the Warriors anything, so he's letting them win. And it's like, okay, come on. Like,
well, you could say that until
like
Duncan didn't play tonight against Houston, so clearly he's actually hurt or actually on an extended rest. So it wasn't Pop throwing the game. This is where they're at in their season, the part of the season where your fossilized 38, 39-year-old guys have to sit.
Yeah, I mean, maybe Blake Griffin punched Tim Duncan.
Oh, that's a thought. Maybe Blake Griffin should punch Greg Popovich.
No.
Do you want to?
What do you think about Blake?
I think he's going to lose some endorsements. I think it really hurts his brand. I bet his agent's been on the phone with Kia, sending them flowers every day because he's making, tens of millions of dollars off endorsements. He's one of the most bankable athletes because basketball players, they run out there, no hats on, no helmets, no shoulder pads. They're just out there with their jersey and their face and their game. So they're highly marketable. Like Chris Paul's one of the most unlikable dudes in the NBA, and he gets to do dozens of commercials. So
yeah, and his brother.
Yeah, and his brother Cliff Paul, who's not even in the NBA. And their cousin, what's his, Jeff Curry? What's Curry's alter ego's name? I can't remember. It doesn't matter. But I'm really worried about
Seth Curry is his alter ego.
Seth Curry? How many brothers, how many kids that Sonia and Dell have? But no, he punches a guy in a restaurant, a guy on his own team, an assistant equipment manager. Got his name here. I don't care. Matthias Testy. Things got testy with Testy. And he didn't punch him in the testes. He punched him in the face. The part I worry about is you hit people, you hit your friends, stuff happens. The problem was he went outside, followed the guy, and hit him again. He hit a guy twice. And not like 1-2, like a combo. Like he hit him, waited a minute, ran outside, hit him again. That's the most disturbing part of the story for me.
Yeah, I mean, it's the Clippers.
It is, and that's the thing. They are perennially cursed. They've tried to do everything right. They got the NBA to rig a Chris Paul trade to them. They drafted Blake Griffin #1 overall, which was the right pick. They put a lot of pieces around a big three, which is what you do. I don't quite know if DeAndre Jordan belongs in a big three, but he's good enough, to win Defensive Player of the Year or finish top 3 every year. So they have done all the right things, and things still go horrifically wrong. So I don't really know what to do with the Clippers. I keep trying to push them to the next round or in my mind or push them, past the Warriors or Spurs, and I just can't do it.
Yeah, I mean, what's funny is if you talk about this with Clippers fans, they kind of nod and say, yep, that's what happens to the
Clippers
Clippers.
fan do you know?
People from San Diego.
Oh, okay. Is this on Twitter? Like, who are you talking to? I don't know a single Clippers fan. I've never met one. The Lakers have dominated that market for so long that I know thousands of people from Los Angeles. Not one of them has ever self-identified as a Clippers fan or worn red and blue or whatever the stupid Lakers or Clippers colors are. So I'm glad you've met a couple.
No, I met a couple of my friends from school are from San Diego. One is a Clippers fan and one is a Heat fan.
Okay, well, the Heat thing makes sense. They've been good since the early 90s, kind of a fun team. They got LeBron. Cool. But it must be so hard being a Clippers fan. And they haven't been as tortured as some of these other cities like Cleveland or Minnesota or any of these things, or Buffalo. But they have to be up there right now. The Clippers just being completely overshadowed by the Raiders when they won titles. The Lakers have won a bazillion titles. The Dodgers had that title in the 80s and a lot before that. So they just can't get any love.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. You always think they're going to be good. Doc, of course, there was the whole thing of like, well, the Warriors didn't have to play the Clippers last year, so they got lucky. And then, well, maybe that's because Clippers didn't advance. But
yeah, well,
that's neither here nor there.
And you guys don't have a small forward worth mentioning. So sorry, the Warriors have Harrison Barnes starting at small forward, and even the guys who come
Harrison Barnes is the worst starter on this team.
I know, and the guys who come off the bench and play small forward would start for the Clippers. So I don't feel too bad for them, other than this is some horrific luck. Blake Griffin seemed like a team guy. I just think the pressure of superstardom has gotten to him, the pressure of living up to that YouTube dunk highlight culture that he created. Other NBA players ride him so hard, they take it so personally that he gets all these endorsements and has all these casual fans drawn to him that they just hammer him both physically and mentally during games, and I think it just really wears on him. So I'm not excusing the behavior because obviously you can't hit anyone, period.
Right.
You especially shouldn't hit anyone on your team because that's going to undermine your team principles and what you guys are trying to accomplish. But I do understand how all of this happened.
Yeah,
Maybe Sterling made him do it. Maybe Donald Sterling made him do it. Who knows?
Yeah, I mean, it was funny, that little window where, where people were kind of pitying the Clippers and giving them credit.
Lob City, man. Lob City was fun.
Lob City was fun. They turned around their jerseys. It's a show of
stupidity,
animosity toward Sterling. Doc Rivers kind of took care of everything, even though he'd been in town for like 10 minutes. I mean,
he dadded it up. He was like, I am Grandpa Dad, and I am in charge now, and I'm black and proud, and I've won a title, and I say that this team is going to win a title too. And everyone was like, oh, Doc Rivers, we love you. You're an LA guy. It's not really working out. I mean, I think he's
now all that goodwill is gone. All that, momentum was gone. I mean,
it's about as gone as Doc Rivers' voice is on most nights.
I thought it was just his voice now.
That's just his voice. That's just how he talks now.
Yeah.
He's got like the Kathleen Turner thing going on. Okay, one more basketball story. LeBron James, did he get David Blatt fired? Is LeBron a coach killer? He's come out and defended himself and said he's never undermined a coach before. But there had to be some back channel chatter between LeBron and management, right?
I mean, that's the kind of thing everyone is kind of assuming, is that LeBron is obviously the most important person in that organization. I mean, probably in the whole state of Ohio.
The most important person in the state of Ohio. I'm trying to refute you. Is like Rutherford B. Hayes still alive? No, he's dead.
So, maybe Andy Dalton thinks that he qualifies.
The Red Rifle, okay. Well, it's definitely not Johnny Manziel.
So, you'd think that he would play a gigantic role in that, but
who talks to who first? Really does the owner GM ask him, or does he ask the owner GM? Who approaches it? Who approaches the coaching problem, do you think? I say it's management coming to LeBron. I think it's management coming to LeBron.
What would it take for somebody on a successful team to get fired? I mean, personality differences?
That's what they claim.
Do you think the ownership is looking at him, when he's got an excellent record and everything's looking good, and do you think they're going to look at this and say, oh, this guy needs to go? Or do you think management hears something through, back alley sources that there's dissent in the clubhouse?
Yeah, you're right. I can see it from a management perspective saying, look, we're putting butts in seats. We're putting W's up. We're leading the Eastern Conference. There's no reason for us to change. The problem, I think, is LeBron has dictated what this team's going to do by virtue of the kinds of contracts he's negotiating. So he comes to Cleveland. He negotiates a 2-year contract, but the second year he doesn't commit fully. It's a player option. So he tears that up and says, okay, I'll sign a new 2-year deal where I'll play this season for $22 million, and I'll have a player option for $23 million next year. So it's like paying month-to-month rent. You're at the whim of the landlord, and the landlord is LeBron James right now, and he's holding the franchise hostage, saying, if we don't win now, I can just leave. And so they're putting them in this huge hurry. And I can understand the hurry because he's 30, 31. He's getting up there and he's got a lot of miles on him. But he's really not letting them establish a culture there. And bringing in David Blatt, they were going to establish a culture. European-style basketball, a winning coach around LeBron. Let him do what he wants, but make suggestions. So I just think LeBron's not allowing them to settle in and do anything because he won't sign a long deal.
I mean, that's absolutely true. The flip side of it is that LeBron is probably the most underpaid athlete in the world.
Well, there's salary caps. I'm sorry he doesn't play in Major League Baseball and can get an A-Rod-like contract, which now, if A-Rod was A-Rod, now he'd be getting a 10-year, $400 million deal or something crazy like that. And that's probably what LeBron deserves, but it is what it is. And you have to win a championship, though.
Right, but if you take Mike Trout and you put him on a 5-man team and you put him in a league with a salary cap, then you're not going to have somebody offering $100 million per year.
No, exactly.
So, if there were no salary cap in basketball, then somebody would just pay LeBron,
$75 million a year.
Of money,
yeah,
and he wouldn't be able to dictate terms. But because the one thing that's limited is the amount of money they can offer him, they need to give him these concessions in other ways. And so, on the one hand, it's annoying, and it doesn't speak well of LeBron that he doing this to Cleveland and the franchise and all these things. On the other hand, you can't exactly say that, we should pity the ownership, we should pity any of this. And this is how he uses his influence and his power and his celebrity, is saying, I'm not just going to let you use me to put butts in seats. I'm only going to stay if you, demonstrate a commitment to actually winning.
Right, and I guess LeBron sees what the Warriors did, where you can bring in a coach and win a title in 1 year. In basketball, if you have the roster, all you have to do is have the coach that can make everyone get along, draw up 3 to 4 plays every game, and win. I guess I can see that, but it's going to be really hard for Tyronn Lue, who's never coached an NBA game in his life until this week, to put together enough.
He's most famous for having Iverson step over him.
Yeah, he's younger than Tim Duncan. Tyronn Lue is younger than Tim Duncan, and he's going to be in the NBA Finals. I don't see any way the Cavs don't make the NBA Finals.
A lot of people are younger than Tim Duncan.
I know. We are. I know that. But I'm just saying that he's going to be in the NBA Finals. There's no way he isn't. So he's going to get completely outcoached by Steve Kerr, and they're going to get completely outplayed by the Warriors or the Spurs or whoever it is Cleveland ends up playing. So would Blatt have been the better option? Probably. At least he's experienced at this point. He's won championships overseas. He coached in the finals last year shorthanded. You never really got to see what he can do. So you're right that it had to be personality. It had to be personal because it wasn't professional because he had a great record.
Luke Walton is significantly younger than Tim Duncan.
He's also coached 0 games as well. Technically, Luke Walton has never coached an NBA game.
He's never lost an NBA game.
That's true. Never won one, never lost one. That's, we can all say that, including Tim Duncan. We're going to break real quick because we do have some sponsors this week. We're going to give some love to 99 Bottles, back on board with us after a brief holiday hiatus. Thank you to 99 Bottles. They are in downtown Santa Cruz. They are your premier dining and drinking destination. You can watch sports there. You can sit at the bar and just have a pint and relax. It's a beautiful place to go. They have a patio. Bring your dog. Have a nice meal. There pretty much isn't anything you can't do there. It's like an adult playground. If they put in shuffleboard, I'm just making suggestions here. But really, it's a carnival for adults. The waffle fries are great. The drink selections are great. The staff is really friendly. So go to 99 Bottles. It's downtown Santa Cruz. It's between Pacific and Cedar on Walnut. One of my favorite spots in downtown. And it's just great. Danny,
and a key part of the history of our friendship.
Dude, we would not be as good of friends as we are right now if we didn't have all of those chats about all the girls I never got to date in college.
Long chat.
You know who you are, ladies. You're all listening. I'll give you a call in a couple months. Don't worry, ladies. Okay. Moving on. They're making us revisit the designated hitter rule in the National League. By they, I mean Major League Baseball, the media, combined to make this moronic force that makes me think about the DH every single offseason, sometimes even during the season. You and I both are National League fans, huge San Francisco Giants fans, which means right now we have great hitting pitchers. And even before that, when we didn't have great hitting pitchers, we still appreciated pitchers hitting in baseball. I'm correct in saying that, right?
Yes, that's true. Actually, I got to do a talk with West Coast Fangirl about the DH and the arguments for and against. So
she's a historian. She's a historian of baseball. She's the ultimate baseball historian. She knows stuff that happened before any of our parents or grandparents were born.
That's absolutely true, and she's also a fan of the team that had the greatest designated hitter of all time,
Edgar Martinez. Good point.
So, and the debate is basically, would you rather watch these really awkward players who occasionally who occasionally do something good, and as she pointed out, Felix Hernandez hit a grand slam, and that was very exciting. But on the other hand, most of the time it just sucks, and it's a black hole in the lineup, an automatic out, and you don't want to see Julio Teheran come up the bat when there's a rally in the bottom. a game-clinching rally.
Well, there's rallies in the first 6 innings, I guess. That's fine. That's what you have pinch hitters for. There's still strategy to get good hitters into the game. My argument is shorter games, having those couple of at-bats, really quash rallies, keep scoring down, which MLB doesn't like, but doesn't really bother me. As a Giants fan who's watched a lot of great pitchers over the last decade, suppress runs and an offense suppress some runs of their own, I don't mind it. I also don't like the fact that Delman Young can get a job just because he can hit 275 with a little pop, but can't make heads or tails of a baseball or a mitt out in the outfield. These guys shouldn't be allowed to be professional athletes if they can't field their position or a position.
I mean, yes and no. We're also big fans of football, and you don't ask that every player on the football field knows how to play every other position or even play offense and defense at the same time. I mean,
right, but pitchers have to play defense at their position. So you're telling me the only thing they don't do is hit.
Yeah, and that's true because pitching is the most specialized skill in the entire game of baseball.
Then why don't they have a guy who stands next to them and fields the pitching position for him? Why should he even lift a finger?
Well, okay, now you're just making the argument ridiculous.
No, I'm not. Because everyone else has to do it. Everyone else has to take one for the team and play defense. These guys want to hit.
The answer is because pitching is a defensive act, and so playing defense is part of that. But we're splitting the line here between offense and defense, not between pitching and everything else.
Did you play baseball, Danny? I can't remember.
Yes. I played Little League. I tried out for my high school baseball team and ended up skipping a tryout to go to youth and government.
Of course you did. Model UN Danny Zarchi. Did you ever play DH in a game ever?
No, I was a catcher.
Okay, yeah, big sturdy guy. That makes sense. I just can't imagine warming up for a baseball game hours before the game, coming up in the first or second inning, and then sitting down for 2 or 3 innings. Like, that's it? That's the whole thing? Imagine if you don't get on base, you don't jog once. That's not sports.
I know.
It's not sports.
I mean,
sports is about being an athlete, showing your athleticism. Quarterbacks, you can say they're most of them, like maybe Peyton Manning or Tom Brady, are unathletic specimens who can't really move very fast, but they still run. They still move around. They still take a beating. These designated hitters don't do anything.
What about place kickers? What about kickers? I mean, they have one job.
You ever see a punter go down hard? All the time. And they also have to make tackles. On the kickoffs, they have to make tackles. On the punts, those guys make tackles.
Right, but people laugh at them. I mean, it's the same principle.
No one was laughing at Mason Crosby when he got that.
Punter,
Mason freaking Crosby
is trying to make a kick. Something has gone wrong.
Mason Crosby stripped the ball. Mason Crosby stripped the ball on a long return from Cordero Patterson that in Week 17 that nearly won the Packers that game. And that was awesome. That's equal to Madison Bumgarner hitting a grand slam or 5 Giants starters all hitting home runs in a season.
Yeah, and Andy Dalton broke his finger by trying to tackle someone after he threw an interception. I mean, does that mean that he shouldn't?
And Jason Street broke his back trying to tackle someone on Friday Night Lights. So, yeah, obviously.
Excellent show.
Though I think Matt Saracen's more of an Andy Dalton type, so maybe that comparison doesn't work. Okay.
Saracen is definitely an Andy Dalton type.
We're going to close this. I say no DH. Are you saying DH?
No, I'm saying, I don't like the DH.
You're open to it. You're open to it.
I understand the argument. I mean, that is my job, after all.
To understand the argument? Or to listen to your girlfriend?
A little bit of column A, a little bit of column B.
She's such a sweet girl. Such a sweet girl.
No, I understand the argument. If it happened, it wouldn't be the worst thing in the world. I just, but I wonder if I didn't grow up a National League fan, how I would feel about it.
Yeah,
I remember, watching the Giants and the A's, in the mid-2000s, and there was definitely a feeling during the Giants games that, okay, if this lineup can just get to Perry, things will be okay. And then you watch an A's game, and there was no pit of the lineup. There was no good part, no bad part. It was just, every player could do something. But when you have pitchers it it means that you better score now, or else they're going to get some free out.
Yeah. No, okay.
And Madison Bumgarner's exciting, but he's still, it's the exception, not the rule. That he actually does something good with the bat.
Yeah, bring Carlos Zambrano back. Okay, let's tie that up because I had some other sports rules that I want to revisit and change because I've been having some things really stick in my craw about watching sports and not getting a fair shake. We can talk about the NFL overtime, and that's been overdone. Both teams should get the ball. We're going to move on from that. I have one right now that I really like. Limiting timeouts at the end of basketball games. Can you get on board with this?
Oh, absolutely.
I cannot watch
I can't even count the number of times I've thought, okay, there's 30 seconds left in this game, so it's about to end, and then, 30 minutes later,
your dinner plate's in the microwave. Ashley's mad at you. I don't really know what's going on.
That's 100% what happened.
So my idea.
It's not real basketball. I don't want to go the full Bill Simmons and say that the professional game should basically be as much like a pickup game as possible, but that's not basketball.
It should resemble it.
Nobody likes it.
Yeah, the only people who like it are the coaches because they get more control over the game. They get to drop a play on every possession. They get to sub in and out offense for defense, and I get it. I get that that's strategy, and it's good strategy. But I want the rule to be you can take one timeout between a minute and 2 minutes left and one timeout between 1 minute and 0 seconds left in the game. You get 2 timeouts at the end of the game. That's it. Don't save any more because you won't get to use them. Those are the 2. That gets us to 4 timeouts at the end of the game, which is still too many. I'm conceding that is still too many, but I'll give it to the coaches. What do you think?
I think that sounds good. I mean, I don't know. There's a certain degree that thinks that it should just kind of be open and let the strategies evolve, but this is one scenario where it's broken. It's annoying. It's hurting the sport. And if baseball can, not let batters step out between pitches, then basketball can come in and say, stop doing this really annoying thing.
Games are drifting towards 2 hours, 35 minutes, which is too much for a basketball game, in my opinion. Danny, did you bring in any sports fixes that you want? Because I'm interested to hear what you have to say.
Yeah, my biggest sports fix is that in football they should be able to review penalties.
Ooh, yeah, like pass interference and stuff.
Certain penalties, particularly those that have massive game-changing implications.
So maybe under 5 minutes of both halves, being able to review pass interference penalties, or roughing the passer. Yeah, roughing the passer is a big one.
The Niners have been particularly screwed by some roughing the passer.
Oh, of course they have, Danny. Of course, that's what you think. Of course. Gosh.
Well, you want to talk about the sack of Drew Brees by Ahmad Brooks?
Yeah, that was
where
a bad
he hit him in the face, and on replay, of course, it was square in the rib cage.
Yeah, that was a bad one. I'll give you that one. I remember that.
I'm not saying that they need to redo judgment calls or something like that, but it uses up a challenge. They're risking losing a timeout, but all they do is say, "Hey, ref, watch this again and see what you say," and they get to watch it with slow-mo, and they say, "Wait a minute, he really didn't interfere with the pass," or "Wait a minute, he really didn't hit him in the face," or "There was no helmet to helmet," or any of those things.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. No, I agree with you. I agree with you.
And there's no reason not to, because the NFL has done a really good job recently in the last several years of realizing, A, a replay is good if we do it quickly, and B, they really need it for all these massive game-changing plays like scoring plays and turnovers. And so if they could do it efficiently, which is a big if, I would want them to replay any play that accounts for over 20 yards or something like that.
Okay, I can see that. We gotta get to a couple more because I made you bring in 3 and I brought in 3. Can we agree that the drop third strike rule in baseball needs to go? What's the point of that rule? No one can explain it to me.
It's definitely stupid.
It was to avoid junk balling early in the game when batters were blinded by cigar smoke and brandy breath. That's not the case anymore. Hitters know how to hit junk pitches. Hitters know how to lay off them. Get rid of it. Stupid.
Yeah.
It goes in the scorebook as a strikeout, but not an out.
I can't articulate a reason why it should be there.
It's gone.
So I have no
then it's gone.
Leaving.
Then it's gone. It's gone.
Not a particular pet peeve of mine.
It's gone. What's your next one?
This isn't a particularly game-changing one, but there's no reason why a pitcher should have to throw 4 intentional balls to walk somebody.
Oh, yeah, just give the guy the base.
Just give the guy the base. What's the problem?
Yeah, say, hey, you, first base. Cool. Tell the other manager, hey, put your guy on first base. I'm going to let him do it.
Yeah,
put him on second base.
I don't want him. Send him over there.
Put him wherever. Yeah, put him wherever you want him. it's like a Pop Warner football coach. Hey, you stand over there. Hey, you stand over there. Kids have no idea what they're doing, but they're just being told to stand in a particular spot, and then they know they'll be rewarded with an orange wedge. That's a good one, Danny. I like that one.
That was an old technique of mine. When I would draw a walk, there were several times where I just would jog to first and then race to second.
Yeah, Ty Cobb used to do that.
Before anybody noticed.
Yeah. Ty Cobb used to do that. It's fantastic.
He got that from me.
Okay, I've got one more. I want to bring back ties in hockey. Now, hockey overtime has gone to a point where it's a 5-minute period of 3-on-3 hockey, which ups the chances there's a score because there's not a lot of defense clogging up the lanes. There's usually a score in overtime now, but if there isn't, they go to a shootout, which I still think is the dumbest way to decide a game in the history of sports. So what I want to happen is after the 3-on-3 hockey, just go straight to a tie. There wouldn't be that many. They could still, count as a point or whatever you want an overtime loss now to count as, and it would still be okay. Ties are okay. They just have to be infrequent enough that they're not annoying.
See, I agree that kind of a skills challenge is not the best way to give a win and a loss.
Let's have a bunting challenge instead of a 10th inning. What do you get? Home run derby. What are you going to do?
I do like the idea of pulling players as the game goes on.
Yeah,
I think that should expand to more sports.
It's still real hockey. It's not as real as 5-on-5 hockey, but often there's power plays, 5-on-4. Sometimes it even gets to 4-on-3. So it does simulate real hockey. It just incentivizes scoring. It has easier scoring chances and ends the game. And if it doesn't end, 80% of those overtimes or 70% of those overtimes end with goals, I'm fine with the other 20 or 30% ending in a tie. A tie doesn't offend me. Dozens of ties offend me.
But imagine if, in baseball, they started pulling one player per extra inning.
Oh, Dan, stop it right there, Danny. We have to go anyway, but that's a ridiculous way to stop. You're Daniel Zarchi. I'm Thomas Todd. You can find me on Twitter.